Dragon's Dogma 2 has been completely abandoned by Capcom, at least from what I can tell. It's almost been 2 years since the release of Dragon's Dogma 2, and we've had not even a whisper of any type of DLC, expansion, update, anything that would bring content to the game. And I think I kind of know why. See, Capcom was working on their new engine, their RE7 engine, or the RE new, I can't remember what they call it. They call it something new, but it's the RE engine. And they were trying to, I think, test the engine. They wanted to see if they could take the engine, instead of being closed corridors like the RE7 RE games, they wanted to see if they could do open world to have their own engine. And I think looking at it from a test perspective, it flopped hard. If you played Dragon's Dogma 2, you know it was littered with bugs, glitches, and performance issues that I think still plague it today. And when it comes to a test of an engine, the content in the game doesn't really matter as much when it comes to just making sure that the engine can run what you want it to run. And that's one of the reasons I feel like the Dragon's Dogma game kind of like lacked content in a way. Like, I think it had a lot of great systems and like things in place, but it never actually took them anywhere important. Like, I felt like the towns were super small. I felt like the storyline like just kind of like forgot a lot of things. Like the queen just kind of vanished completely from the storyline, even though she was so important. The monsters were like lacking in like variety, even though they had other monsters to pull from. It just felt like overall the game was undercooked, and I think it's just because they didn't care about the game content itself. They just wanted the engine to be able to run what they wanted to run, and what they wanted it to run was their newest Monster Hunter game, which, if you've played Monster Hunter Wilds, you know they are still trying to fix the performance issues right to this day. But there's also a bit more to this than just testing the engine. See, just testing the engine also would justify them not really caring about the content of the game, but you would think that the people creating the game would still want it to be good and, you know, create a vision for the game. Well, that's not going to happen anymore because the creative director for Dragon's Dogma 2 has left Capcom. Now, the creator of Dragon's Dogma 2, Hideki Itsuno, has left Capcom back in 2024 following the release of Dragon's Dogma 2. He went on to go to a new company called Lightspeed Studios that's based in Japan. And I mean, he is Japanese, so that would make sense. But he left, and I heard him say that he didn't want to continue to repeat pushing out sequels for Dragon's Dogma 2 and Devil May Cry. Now, this might just be my own personal, game theory conspiracy. Right now I'm gonna put on a little tinfoil hat here and assume that that isn't the real reason. Now, again, this is just my personal opinion. It has nothing based on truth or not, because nothing's ever been said against this. But a part of me feels like if something is your kind of like baby, like Dragon's Dogma is to him. Your boss tells you they're going to use your baby as a test subject. To me, at least, that sounds like it would make me want to quit it, to say the least. Now, I know, that sounds stupid, but I'm just telling you that if I want to create something and they're telling me to use this new engine that isn't even ready yet. I mean, let's be honest. We've seen the games that have been made on it so far. It feels like the engine just isn't ready for what they want it to be. It kind of would leave a sour taste in everyone's mouth, especially mine. Again, not saying this is true, not saying this has happened, just my own personal opinion and theory about how and why he wanted to actually quit. When you are quitting a job, you can't really, especially if you want to go to a new studio or something where your reputation kind of matters. You're not going to say, I left because my boss was a jerk and he maybe used something that wasn't even ready yet, blah, blah. He doesn't want to ruin his potential job opportunities. And you think that when it comes to somebody who's been working at a company for over 3 decades, that if he didn't want to do something, he could have just used his position and authority to say no. Unless one of the reasons he did leave was because it felt like he lost any authority over his own position and work environment and work choices. And you would think that the guy who made the Devil May Cry series and even the more niche Dragon's Dogma series, which is still liked, would still have some ability to make new titles if you wanted to. But if he kept being forced to make sequels like some other companies would make you do, like Assassin's Creed, it only makes sense that maybe he would quit because he doesn't want to make sequels, but not because he doesn't want to make sequels, but because he didn't have the option to make anything else. Because new doesn't sell, old sells with a new fresh coat of paint. And ever since he quit Capcom, there's never been any word of any type of DLC coming from Capcom ever, or anybody else who ended up working on this project. Some would say that a DLC is never going to happen because the sales and overall player count isn't really there for it, and that 94% of its player base dropped off after 2 months. I would say that's just typical of a story game. When you have a story game, it typically is what happens. Even with a lot of online games, even with some in-game content, once the main story ends, some people just don't stick around. That's just kind of typical of a story game, especially for one as niche as this. And when it comes to my tinfoil hat theory, the only thing I think that can actually prove what I'm saying is true is if he makes some type of spiritual successor to Dragon's Dogma over at Lightspeed Studios, unless Capcom decides to revive it. But like I said, the way they treated it with it as a test for this engine, I'm not seeing Capcom brush it off one more time just because, you know, for the love of the game. And I'm unaware of any past Capcom lawsuits, but just because Nintendo goes after anybody and their mother just for any bit of footage they have of a Nintendo game on their channel, I can 100% see Capcom doing the same thing if Hideki tried to make a Dragon's Dogma spiritual successor over at Lightspeed. But hey, who knows? They never said they weren't going to make a DLC, so I think there's still enough copium to take me on for another year or two. But once that comes up, I think that'll finally be the nail in the coffin for Dragon's Dogma 2. Right now, who knows? Maybe some hope. I'm crossing my fingers. But for right now, I think it's pretty safe to say we're not looking to see something for a long time for Dragon's Dogma. And if you're one of those people still clinging to their pawns and shaking like a leaf, waiting for any news of a DLC, let me know down below, because I'm honestly waiting for them to just say no. At least stop me from hoping. I don't want to hope anymore. Just let it go, please.